Hopefully not the last one. But thank you very much, Jay, for this opportunity. I'm not on the list, received a late invitation, but I said it's all too important to miss this opportunity to come attend this so important meeting. In fact, summit. I like that it is summit. It is not just a meeting, it's a summit. And the ambition when we joined also the declaration is that we really set a global movement also which will have a very concrete results. And what is indeed wonderful about this meeting this morning, apart from the fact that we had the Prime Minister, and it was a big support, a huge support for this agenda. We couldn't have expected better for girls, but also that we can bring all different experiences and look at the girls from the different perspectives, from the perspective of health, of education, of traditional practices sometimes, family of circumstances. And I think each one of us can bring a very particular perspective at the end of the day to look at how we stop this, eradicate, I would say, in our generation, this practice about genital mutilation or early marriages, to take the two main themes of this conference. And here is where education, and which leads, of course, to economic empowerment also, take a hugely important role. And we heard this morning from all the political leaders. We heard it from Prime Minister Cameron, we heard it from Sheikha Hasina, from Chantal Traoré, we heard it from Malala Yousafzai herself, what an important role education plays in this matter. And just taking only the early child marriages, our last global monitoring report on education, because we published every year, we monitor the global situation, the last global monitoring report shows that ensuring girls stay in school is one of the most effective ways to avert child marriages. And the figures show, the statistics show that on one hand, and we know that women with higher levels of education are less likely to get married or have children at an early age, and that if all girls had primary education in sub-Saharan Africa and South and West Asia, child marriage would fall by 14%. If they had secondary education, it would fall by 64%, and early births would fall by 59%. I think figures speak by themselves. So what is needed to be done here? It is needed that in all our strategies for education, starting with the post-2015 agenda, and I was last week in New York with the Open Working Group to discuss the post-2015 agenda in terms of education. There, one of the targets that we have put also is free compulsory education, because we know that if it's a free compulsory education, including the secondary education, it means that parents are sending their girls to school, because poverty, as it was mentioned this morning, prevents families from sending primarily girls to school. And if you look at figures, when enrollment is increasing, it is increasing predominantly with girls going to school. And another, I think, very important focus that we have to have, both within this conference, we put this emphasis in education, I think also in the other areas, but education. The key issue here, in our view, is to focus on the adolescent girl. It is the 10-year-old girl. This is the transition towards puberty. And this is where all the problems, in fact, and the most difficulty start. So in terms of education, if we focus on the lower secondary education, first and foremost, include the importance for girls to get secondary education, this transition towards dropouts of schools, working with families, with communities, with traditional, with religious leaders, to tell them how important it is that girls stay in school, and then also give a lot of more of a knowledge what is at stake here, I think we will decrease to a very large extent early child marriages, and also create through different awareness programs, introducing also in schools the knowledge about puberty, the knowledge about genital mutilation, what is at stake from different points of view, I think is critical. And through one of our programs with Procter & Gamble, we partner in girls' education in Africa, and within this program, we have developed a puberty kind of a textbook, something that we want to give girls, because our statistics also show that girls at this age, they don't know about their bodies. They don't know about menstruation. They don't know what is happening. The predominant majority of them don't know. And if we want to involve them, like this conference, and I think it's great, that's one of the ambitions of this conference, is targeting also young people, young girls, for them to speak out. And we heard very strong voices this morning. They have also to know what is at stake, and they have to be aware of this important transition phase. So I would say that in terms of education, it is extremely important, and then all the other related issues. I know it's long, but I have to cut it short. Having women teachers, concentrate on women teachers, introducing in textbooks also, having safe schools. In Pakistan, somebody told me, don't believe that all children, all families do not want to send their girls to school. They want, but they want to send them to safe schools. So all these issues, I think, are related one with another, and they will have a huge impact. But education, I believe, is critical. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Irina, for kicking us off. We're now going to hear from 4 practitioners who are running interventions that are supporting and empowering girls in schools, starting with Angeline Murimirwa, who is the Regional Executive Director of Camfed, working in Malawi, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thanks to everybody for choosing particularly this parallel session to attend. It is not a coincidence that Malawi, which is one of the countries with the highest exclusion rates for girls, also has one of the highest marriage rates, highest child marriage rates. That's not a coincidence. I just want to repeat what was said earlier this morning, that in Malawi, nearly two-thirds of girls with no formal education were child brides, compared to 5% who had attended secondary school and higher. That is not a coincidence. What you need to realize is that girls who are out of school get married. And education and child marriage don't work hand in hand. So if you're really serious about educating girls, about ending child marriage, let's keep children in school. I've worked with Camfed for over 22 years, from the time when Camfed supported me to go through school. I'm one of the girls who came from a very poor family that could not afford to keep me in school. And one of the lessons that we have learned as an organization is that girls are being forced from school straight into marriage. And that is a message repeated over and over again. And like I just gave you some indications, that's the reality we faced in Malawi, that's the reality we faced in Zimbabwe, in Tanzania, and in Zambia, and of course in Ghana where we work. The other issue that we have learned is that real change comes from the communities where the girls come from. We cannot continue to conveniently blame parental pressure and culture as the key drivers of child marriage. We need to start harnessing the local activism and commitment to children, to a brighter future that is in those same communities. Somebody this morning was presenting from the police, I think, mentioned that when they asked one girl to witness in a court for the prosecution of her parents, she said she was going to self-harm, including even committing suicide. And one of the participants actually said, these girls want to end child marriage. They don't want to have their family relations ended. They don't want to be ostracized from their community. And that is a critical challenge for us. How do we ensure that we end child marriage, we end female genital mutilation without resulting in these girls being ostracized, being excluded and isolated from their communities? That is the challenge of our generation. I also want to be able to mention that communities need the safe space and the respect for them to be able to unlearn, to relearn, and to continuously improve in supporting their children to stay in school and to become better than they were. This morning, Alimatu, who spoke, I think she was the first spokesperson in the plenary, she said something that was very profound. She said that my grandmother's gift to me was female genital cutting. And then she said she was concerned if I went to university without being cut, I'll be ostracized. The grandmother's concern was that her grandchild will be ostracized. How do we ensure that we harness that concern and make it clear to her that if this is what's going to happen, she's going to be even more ostracized? Alimatu said she has never gone back to that home, to that community, and probably to her grandmother. So how do we ensure that communities understand, that parents understand, that families understand that actually it's not an option. Marriage is not an option for children. Talking about impact for us as an organization, I just said to you that we've worked for over 22 years. We measure impact as an organization in the actual change in individual girls' lives and the choices that they can now enjoy. And for us, that's a reflection of the transformation in the communities that they come from. I will just show you some of the growing trends that we've witnessed as an organization. The retention and progression rates for girls that we have supported to stay in school have consistently been above 90%. And remember what I said earlier on, if a girl is in school, she's not going to get married. And keeping girls in school has delayed their age of motherhood. It was good that the statistics shared today also coincided with our own experience from Malawi. 5% of the girls that we're supporting through school had become mothers, compared to 26.8% nationally from the same age group, which meant that keeping them in school kept them away from marriage. I'm also from Zimbabwe originally. And one of the things that we have learned with education is that education increases the earning power for girls. Some of you might be aware of the Zimbabwean crisis, well publicized around 2007 and 2008. When we did a study just after that crisis, we discovered that 83% of members of the Camfed alumni network were breadwinners for their families. And 72% of them were supporting other children with non-relatives to stay in school. So if we are going to address issues of poverty, issues of lack, issues of need, we need to ensure that as many children as possible stay in school so that their children can stay in school and their great-grandchildren will stay in school. June from Nigeria in the morning said something along those lines. She said that when my grandmother said that my mother was not going to be cut, she started a precedence where even her June was not cut. So when we start that whole generation, it's a generational change. So we need to ensure that this circle is broken at some point. Talking about scale up, while as an organization we've got very strong partnerships with governments in every country that we work in, it's a model partnership that I think a lot needs to look into. We know that real scale up, real change, real transformation comes from the local communities. When the aunts, the grandmothers, the daughters stop child marriage, keep their children in school, that is where the real scale up begins. Camfed's growth has been phenomenal. Camfed started with one woman. She's here. I'm not going to point her out. I don't think she's going to like it. Camfed started with one woman who said, what if I just support these girls to go to school? What would happen? That was at one school with 32 girls. As I speak right now, Camfed is established in 5 African countries and is working in over 5,085 schools. And to date, we have supported over 3 million girls to stay in school. Angeline here included. I could be a child bride. I'm not, because I was kept in school. And what has happened as well is, as part of the group that was supported by Camfed through school, that was in 1998, we came together, 350 of us, and said, what is it that we can do to stop this whole issue around girls dropping out of school, girls getting married? So we started our own alumni network. As I speak right now, we have got over 24,400 members across 5 African countries, and that membership is still growing. And I want you to know that within the next 5 years, that number is set to grow to 130,000 young women. We are not passive recipients of aid. We are activists in our own right. We have been supported through school in such a way that we can still engage with our communities to get more children educated, to get more children to stay in school. So what I'm saying is that if you want to end child marriage, educate girls. They will not be married early. They will not have their children married early. They will stay in school. They will change the world. So if you want this to be sustained, if you want this to be earned, educate, educate, educate. Thank you.
Angeline, thank you. It's inspirational to hear your personal story, and I know many of us here are already great admirers of what Camfed does, and even more so after hearing that. Let me hand over now to Roshni Sen, who is the Secretary at the Department of Women and Child Development and Social Welfare in the Government of West Bengal in India. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, good afternoon, friends. Today, I speak on this Kanyashri scheme. It is a scheme implemented by the government of West Bengal from October 2013 under the leadership of our Chief Minister. That's her photo. You can see the components of the scheme. I won't read it out. But Kanyashri, I'll just elaborate on the meaning. Kanya is a girl child, and Shri is beauty and prosperity. So it is believed in our country that a girl child brings with her beauty and prosperity. Today in the morning, you heard that there are about 700 million child brides in the world. And India alone has 30% of this number. Our state, West Bengal, is a small state, a beautiful state in the eastern side of the country, accounts for 10% of the child brides in the country. It is seen that the districts in West Bengal where the incidence of child marriage is high also report the maximum number of trafficking in young girls. So our government felt that this malpractice has to be addressed. And it was felt that this problem can be challenged by appropriate investments in girls' education. And thus was born this scheme, Kanyashri. It was named by the Chief Minister. You can see the logo of the scheme that's drawn by the Chief Minister herself. She has written most of the jingles and the slogans, and she's the brain behind most of the creatives. The scheme has very, very lovely creatives. I can't show them today because of constraints of time. But the lesson learned is that if there is a charismatic leader who's deeply involved in a scheme, the scheme is sure to succeed, especially if the leader is a role model to young girls. While designing this scheme, I went through the CCT schemes that are operating, the conditional cash transfer schemes that are operating throughout the country. And I felt that a scheme can be popular if it has minimum conditions, maximum access, easy access for the beneficiaries, and negligible paperwork. And thus the scheme was born, and you can't believe, within 10 months, we already have 1.6 million beneficiaries enrolled in the scheme, 1.6 million. Tremendous response. Why? Because the application form is simple. It's available in the schools and the colleges. The bank accounts of the girls, they're facilitated by the local level officials and the teachers. And the whole application is transparently handled through the website wbkanyashri.gov.in. The scheme actually is not just a scheme, it's like a movement. In fact, it's now become a flagship scheme of the state of West Bengal. And the focus is on the self-esteem of the girls. In many schools, now there are Kanyashri clubs where there is peer group counseling going on. Kanyashri fairs are celebrated throughout the state with much fanfare. A specific day has been designated as a Kanyashri Day. We also felicitate young girls who have protested against child marriage, who have done extremely well, who have led the movement from the front. In fact, we make each and every Kanyashri beneficiary swear a pledge like this, where they say that they'll spread the message. It's a scroll, but I've just taken a printout, where they say that they'll spread the message of the benefits of education and also work for preventing child marriage. Each girl is given a beautiful photo identity card. This is a blown-up version of the photo identity card. And this card can later on be used as a priority card for other government schemes, for availing of benefits under other government schemes. This and a lovely bangle. Each and every girl is given a lovely golden, it's a gold-plated, it's not gold. This 1.6 million girls will be given a lovely bangle on behalf of the Chief Minister. So this gives them a feeling of identity, of involvement, and of pride of being part of the movement that's called Kanyashri. Emma, will you mind wearing it? And it's for you. Another beautiful thing that the scheme shows is that of convergence. It is one scheme where the Department of Women Development, Social Welfare and Child Development, that's the department I head, the departments of school education, the Department of Technical Education, Higher Education, the Department of Finance, the Department of Health and Family Welfare, the Finance Department, UNICEF, and the banks are working together to reach the benefits right to the girls. The scheme has a focus on the socially disadvantaged sections. In fact, 60% of the beneficiaries belong to the weaker sections because there is a ceiling, income ceiling. But for orphans and for specially able girls, even that income ceiling, the family income ceiling is relaxed. And I'm extremely proud to say that this is the first CCT scheme in the whole country, maybe in the whole world, where we are conducting a baseline survey, a detailed baseline survey by a third party with UNICEF assistance, so that in future, the outcome and the impacts can be very, very objectively assessed. Last but not least, the scheme is absolutely scalable because it's operated through the schools. Schools are the basic units, and administratively, it's a very, very simple scheme. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roshni. I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Priya Nanda, who is the Group Director for Reproductive Health and Economic Development at the International Centre for Research on Women.
Good afternoon. I think it's working, yes. So I have written my speech because I was scared that I wouldn't be able to stick to the word count if I just spoke. So excuse me reading from my computer. But I'm continuing in the same vein of discussing the conditional cash transfer programs that were already shared by Roshni to all of us. About 20 years ago, in 1994, in Haryana, a northern state in India, less than 40% girls would be able to complete their education in school, and about 57% of all girls were getting married before the age of 18. Haryana, at that time, also had very adverse sex ratios, as low as 850 girls to 1,000 boys born. The Apni Beti Apna Dhan conditional cash transfer, which in English is Our Daughters, Our Wealth, CCT program was initiated in that context in 1994 to motivate families to value their daughters differently. One of the first conditional cash transfer programs in India, Apni Beti Apna Dhan, is unique amongst all large-scale CCT interventions underway in India, in that the beneficiaries faced a protracted benefit 18 years later, after a period of 18 years, that before they received the cash transfer, as the conditionality was explicitly based on delayed marriage. So when they were born, a bond was deposited in their name for 2,500 rupees, which could be encashed for 25,000 rupees at the age of 18 if they remained unmarried. And it specifically targeted vulnerable populations, as in the in the West Bengal scheme. And the program ran only from 1994 to 1998. Then the government ran out of these bonds and resources, and the program was stopped. But it became the precursor for many of the girl schemes that came up later in the country, like Ladli and Dhanalakshmi, etc., and even the one that has been referred to in West Bengal. So this was really one of the first programs. Now, at that time, unlike the West Bengal scheme, there wasn't a baseline. There was no data collected. Since 2010, my organization, the International Center for Research on Women, has been studying the impact of this program because, interestingly, this is the first CCT we could have evaluated where we'll get a natural experiment of looking at the girls who would turn 18, because the girls who were born in 1994 would be turning 18 in 2012 onwards. So it gave us the ability to really look at the impact on marriage as opposed to on just education. So we've been studying this since 2010, and a rigorous impact evaluation was designed for a sample of 9,000 beneficiaries and a comparable group of eligible non-beneficiaries girls, where we looked at girls born between 94 and 98, and we did 2 rounds of survey, one in 2012, before the older girls turned 18, and the second one, which is planned in the fall of 2014, after the older girls will turn 18 and would have an opportunity to cash out. The first round of survey in 2012 assessed the impact of the CCT on girls' education. The second round of survey will assess the impact on the age of marriage. So what I'm discussing here is the first round of survey. So our study has found that Apni Beti Apna Dhan has had a significant and positive effect on education. Abad girls are 25% more likely to remain in school after the age of 15 as compared to non-Abad girls. So there is a tremendous effect on high school retainment for the beneficiaries versus the girls who are not getting the benefit. The girls who were eligible but did not become beneficiaries are comparable to beneficiaries. They didn't become beneficiaries because of circumstantial reasons. There wasn't the facilitating person in the village at that time. We need some certain health functionaries who would have facilitated their access, or they didn't get the paperwork in time. So that's why we've learned lessons, and simplifying the paperwork has been a very important part of the design of future schemes. Now, what is the relevance of this number of 25%? So here's a little bit further analysis. The relevance of any such numeric impact of a CCT like this comes to life when we acknowledge the stories of young girls we interviewed during the study. Let me tell you about one such girl whose story personifies the many we met. Ravina is a beneficiary who would have studied only till class 10, as her village does not have a secondary school, and her mother did not want her to send her out of the village to study. She would have been married soon after grade 10, but her family decided that she wait to turn 18 to encash her benefit. She will be married soon after she turns 18. She's a current Abad beneficiary. She has a younger sister who's not an Abad beneficiary. She too will be getting married with Ravina when Ravina turns 18, and her sister will be less than 18, as it is less costly for her family to marry off both daughters together. Her mother says, once they are married, there is no coming back to the parents' home. So just substantiating the belief that once you only invest in your daughters till their marriage, and after that they belong to their marital home. Abad has offered an opportunity to Ravina and many others to study longer and marry only after she is 18. Her sister, who is not a beneficiary, will unfortunately not get this benefit. Clearly, we must commend the dramatic effects of CCTs like Abad on educational attainment of beneficiary girls, but we may also be circumspect about gender transformations they can enable in girls' lives. Could Ravina and her sister have negotiated a different set of options for themselves? Could Ravina have opportunities to pursue her future beyond marriage? Could her parents have changed their attitudes about the value of investing in their daughter's future economic well-being? In answering these questions, we suggest that alongside CCTs that incentivize education or delayed marriage, there is a need for complementary interventions and services that enhance the quality of schools, provide effective pathways for transition from education to employability, and also challenge and replace rigid gender norms in communities with more equitable gender norms and opportunities. We need to enhance the potential of CCTs like Abad to enable sustained shifts, not only to achieve discrete goals of age of marriage or secondary school completion, but to create more normative shifts in value through gender equal opportunities and results.
Priya, thank you very much, and thank you for your efforts to stay within the word count. Much appreciated.
30 seconds. The first research brief from our studies here on a table, so for those who are interested.
Okay, and now let me introduce my colleague, Sally Gear, who is the Senior Education Advisor at DFID on our Girls' Education Challenge.
Great,
Tali.
thank you, Joy. I'm pleased to say that a lot of the things I'm going to say sort of do mirror some of the points that have been raised. I'm hoping that will start off a really good conversation. I was asked to talk to you briefly this afternoon about the UK's flagship Girls Education Challenge. We've summarised it on the one-pager and we have a slide behind, but in brief, this was a £355 million programme that the UK government launched in 2012, and it was targeted solely and very clinically on improving the educational opportunity for the world's poorest girls. The background to the programme in brief was the recognition that business as usual wasn't reaching this particular target group. If you want to know the full background, there's a 100-page business case on our website, so please go and have a look at that if you're interested. The statistics say it all. In 2011, although there's been tremendous progress in enrolment and completion rates for girls and boys over the last 2 decades, in 2011, only 23% of the poor rural girls in sub-Saharan Africa were completing primary school. That's primary, not secondary school. And if recent trends continue, the poorest girls will not reach primary secondary school in 2080. So that's the scale of the challenge, and that was very much the targeted focus of the programme. So the programme is about resources. It's about partnering with fantastic organisations like Camfed, who are just delighted that they are our partner on this programme, because they obviously know what they're doing. But it's also about levering more than just the individual projects. So we invested quite heavily in an evaluation of the programme, which will track over 70,000 girls across 37 projects in 17 different countries globally, live. So we'll be able to really understand what's preventing these girls from completing their education, but also what's working in really making a difference to their lives. It's also about levering private sector and global businesses into this sphere, recognising we can't do it on our own. So we have partnerships with organisations such as Discovery Channel, Coca-Cola, and very recently, which was announced today at the summit, Avanti Communications. So new technology, learning opportunities, developing learning opportunities in some of the most challenging contexts, but all for poor rural girls. In addition, we're not measuring success just by girls getting into school. We're measuring success by girls' improvement in learning outcomes. I think one of the key messages that we hope will come out, that when we talk about girls' education, it's an education, not being in school, that really makes a difference to empowerment and enabling these girls to have choice about all these various aspects of their lives. So really, just my last few minutes, I wanted to share with you some of the findings from the baselines, which have just been undertaken from across all of our programmes. We're doing a very robust analysis, so this is very much a snapshot, and actually it's really to get your appetite heightened for the next 3 years, when we'll be sharing our findings, and it'll all be open to all of you in the important work that you're doing. First of all, I think one of the key messages is on face value. Yes, girls and parents want their girls to go to school. That's very much the message that's coming out of the baseline. However, when we push that a little bit more, there are still maintained strong attitudes on gender roles. So in the same breath, a father can say, as one did in Mozambique, girl education is important, but actually, no matter how much education you give to a woman, one day she'll end up in someone's kitchen and all her needs will be catered for. So although education is there, there's still some change needed. And I think that also, sadly, reflects the findings that out of 31 out of 37 projects did say child marriage or early girls' marriage was a huge reason why girls weren't going to school and why they were dropping out of school. But finally, and this is to reiterate Angeline's point, the poverty was a key driver to these attitudes. And if more choice was available and if more opportunity was available, then that would affect parents' decision-making. And that wasn't the final point. There's one more on that. It's not just about the cost of education. It was about the quality of education. So I think the messages here, and certainly that we're coming up from our experience, is that, yes, we need to change attitudes, but we really need to address the constraints, the poverty constraints. But equally, we need to ensure that when girls go to school, that they are safe and they are learning something that's meaningful and will enable them to move on and have improved choice, voice and control in their lives. And finally, I just want to finish with a quote from Tandy from one of our programmes, just to echo this fantastic spiralling effect of education. And she said, I'm already a hero in my community and school, and now I have started gathering girls who have dropped out of school from around the villages to go back inside.
Well, thank you to all our speakers. We have about 10 minutes for questions now. We are going to finish on the dot of 3 o'clock. We would like to hear from as many people as possible and from anybody. You don't. We've heard from some really inspiring women. You don't have to be running a programme to have a view on this. You can be somebody who's had personal experience or just wants to share something. You may have a question you want to ask. You may have a point you want to make or a view you want to express. I know some people here who may want to make a personal commitment or make a commitment on behalf of their organisation. That's fine too. Please, no long speeches, because we do want to hear from as many people as possible. And let's start over here.
Thank you very much. My name's Alice Albright. Oh, thanks. Thank you. My name's Alice Albright, and I know many of you. I work at GPE. I had a specific question about conditional cash transfers. I think you all have had some terrific success with using them to get children into school, but connecting the dots between a CCT and how we might possibly use it to enhance learning outcomes, what would your ideas be about some of the design aspects of how we might go about that? So CCTs and learning outcomes.
Okay, thanks, Alice. We'll collect a number of questions, and we'll come back to Priya and Roshni on that question in a moment.
Hello. I would like to ask, I know, just first of all, commend you guys on your work. It's really amazing. But I wanted to ask, education is all well and good. It's really important. I know that. I love school. And I'm not just saying that. I actually do. But my question is, a lot of people do find, and it's not just me here in the UK, I have asked people from abroad, that once you finish school, there's sometimes a gap between finding work, so the economic opportunities. In schools, you really just learn the textbook work. What do you think is best in terms of getting more people who do complete that education, so do finish the end of secondary school, to find a job, because it's the vocational skills that they do need to actually work in specific jobs anyway? And schools don't really cover that. So there's a gap in skills that hasn't really been covered.
Okay, thank you for that question. We'll come back to Priya on that and to anyone else on the panel who would like to comment. Let's go right to the back.
Hi, my name is Alicia Miranda. I'm with the Thomson Reuters Foundation. Haven't met too many other private sector people here today. Wondering if there are some here and where you see the role, where they should be, because they don't seem to be here. And it would be great if they were, I think, particularly in the context of this discussion.
Thank you very much. And we'll take one more in the second row. And then we'll come back for another round.
Thank you. Anne Cotton, Camfed. To Sally. Sally, the issue around child marriage, pushing girls out of school, or, is it the fact that they're out of school, they're getting married? I think that is so fundamental to how we then address the issue. I wonder if you could unpack that a little. And to Angie, I wonder if you could describe the social process by which you engage communities on this issue. Thank you.
Okay, so let's take those questions. So starting with the conditional cash transfers and learning outcomes.
Thank you for your questions. Around the learning outcomes, that is a real challenge for us, particularly in India, because we are finding through repeated studies that happen every year annually, the very poor performance on learning. So I don't think the CCT, particularly designed targeted to the girl, can really improve learning outcomes. This incentive will have to be to the motivator or the teachers, and it has to be linked with improved quality in schools. So I think that there has to be incentive-based systems to improve performance and improve learning of students and results of students linked to the teachers for their effort. And there is no such scheme, but if it existed, it would perform it would really improve the results on learning. So having teachers, having a performance-based system, an incentive-based system for teachers would be a really good design. Around that question that you asked, my friend, around the employability, that's like the million-dollar question right now. And we have done an analysis of adolescent girls programs in India through the Ford Foundation. We did a whole landscape study and found that there was nothing. There was overwhelming focus on life skills, vocational skill education such as tailoring, beauty courses, and very gender stereotype skilling for girls, but there was hardly anything that really helps girls plan for future employability. So I think the big lacuna is that the education is not a gateway or a pathway for helping them plan for their futures. So we've designed a new program with MacArthur Foundation, which I'm calling Planning Ahead for Girls Empowerment and Employability. So the acronym is PAGE, and it's really actually addressing that gap, because it's not about vocational skill training, but it's skilling, it's building their skills and confidence and efficacy and resourcefulness for planning for their future, alongside giving them mentorship and guidance and exposure to concrete employment sectors and opportunities, and bring a range of employment sectors as partners. So I wanted to kind of offer that in case others are interested and want to talk on that particular issue.
Great, thanks, Priya. Yes, are you going to address the second question on what happens to girls when they come out of school?
Yeah, what she said, and the question is really valid. What we are trying through our scheme is that not just retain the girls in school, but to empower them so that they can make a choice. It's their choice whether they'll go into the job market or be married. They have a voice. It's not a single point intervention. And in fact, it's a very new scheme, but as I said, with the help of the ID card, we'll open avenues for them for getting training in various vocational activities, computer training. We are starting with a computer training for specially subsidized training for these girls. So as I said, that once the girls are empowered, once they have a voice, all the other things will follow.
Great, thank you. Who Irina?
If I may add one word to technical vocational thing, I think it's extremely important, and we are working with ILO, with many others, for technical vocational training, setting up the systems in many countries, opening centers. I was in Lilongwe too last year. In Malawi, we opened there also an institute of teacher training for technical vocational training. But here also, from the girls' perspective, I think we should know that there is a lot of stereotypes still there. Girls do not enroll in this. And that is why it is important also to not only raise awareness, but also to have a gender aspect of technical vocational training, and also to have a gender-sensitive teacher training for technical vocational education. I think this is very important. And we do have some programs in Africa. Also about the business, and I think this is important. There are many initiatives on business. We launched business-based education. We worked with UNICEF to launch a guidelines for business involvement in education recently. And I think it is critical nowadays that business is with us, because it brings innovation, new technologies, new ideas. It is not just financing some project, but I believe it is indeed critical. Even taking technical vocational training, it's expensive. Many countries cannot afford it. And that is why this is also, once again, when business comes in order to support educational efforts.
Sally, you were going to say something about private sector.
On the private sector, yes, hello. And there are some private sector companies here, because Avanti Communications are here, part of the Girls' Education Challenge Partnership. But I think there's sort of 3 points on this, just very briefly. I think the first is the challenge around marginalisation, is really aligning incentives of private sector organisations to really support in that area, because obviously that's going to be a challenge if you want to move beyond the sort of CSR type of model. But I think we've got opportunities there, and particularly the work we're doing on the Girls' Ed Challenges around the EdTech sort of area, and how we can use that and really galvanise that to reach out to really marginalised communities. And I think maybe some of the response to the question on skills and what next, certainly in terms of curricular development, I know some work that's been done still at quite small scale, but about getting the private sector very involved in the post-basic secondary area, much more about the relevance of curricula. And I think that's a sort of on a national level where the private sector is a really key partner, and we need to go and find who's here and perhaps perhaps do better next time if they're not being as visible as you'd like. So.
Great, thanks, Sally. We are running out of time much faster than any of us would like. Let me ask Sally and Angeline to just address Anne's question.
Do you want to go ahead?
I just want to talk very quickly about the social process we work through when we engage with communities. Under no circumstances do we ever come to a community as the Superman or as the people with the solution or with the magic wand. We respect the commitment to communities to brighter future. And there's no community where this was best proved as in Malawi, where there is a lot of accusations that the culture in Malawi does not value girls' education. In all the communities that I've been exposed to in Malawi, this is over 628 schools, we've always asked the question to communities, what do you want for your daughters? And all the time they say, we want our daughters to be lawyers, to be doctors, to be engineers. And then we ask the other question, do you believe in education? And they say yes. And then they say, do you think girls are out of school because communities don't know the value of education? Yes. And who in this community doesn't believe that? Why am I saying this? We need to start realizing that when messages are repeated over and over again, when we constantly tell communities that you don't know the importance of education, you don't value your children, the tragedy is most of them start believing it themselves. That was the tragedy that I personally encountered in working with schools and communities in Malawi, where they believed that they had no solution to the challenges of their children. Some of them even believing that they were a danger to their own children, to the point of saying, is there something else that you could tell us? Maybe you from Zimbabwe, you might have a solution. And you have to start from rebuilding their confidence in the role that they can play in transforming their own children's lives. I just want to say that we have got the first program graduates from Malawi in a context where we're challenged that none of them would graduate. Girls from this community will never graduate. This is how they are. But right now we have got over 10% of them are going to university, including some of them going to America. And that has provided the living evidence in communities that actually, we're not that bad. This is possible. Our children can be the living testimony, and we can change. So I just want to say we have to get the social process right. We have to understand what's going on. We shouldn't just take the superficial messages that we are given as the given. We need to dig deeper. Thank you.
Sally. Follow that.
I was going to say, we were talking before about don't follow the Prime Minister, and I'm not sure whether I should follow the regional director of Camfed, but very briefly, and I think the way we're addressing it is that it's been picked up in our evaluation work. So we're not seeing the girl just in school and very isolated. We're looking very much at these broader issues. So several of our programmes are really targeting early marriage, very specifically. So I think that's the short answer, but I'm happy to follow up in more detail about the individual projects afterwards.
Okay, thank you very much, panel. I fear we're not going to have time for another round of questions. I'm sorry about that. I know there's lots of energy in the room. You may be able to catch the panellists on the way out to ask them your question. My programme rather bravely says that at 5 to 3 I will summarise the discussion. I'm not sure. I'm quite sure I'm not adequate to summarise the energy and the depth of the experience in the room, but just 2 or 3 things that have struck me. At the beginning of this session, Angeline very fairly asked me why we'd chosen to focus today on FGM and early and forced marriage rather than just saying educate girls, because we know that that's one of the things that will have the biggest effect. And my answer to that was that we felt we wanted to use this opportunity and the willingness of our Prime Minister to take a stand and to put his energy into today to talk about issues that are quite sensitive and that we don't feel have been aired enough. So we took a decision to do that. But we do all know, and it's been absolutely clear from this discussion, that educating girls is going to be absolutely fundamental to dealing with those issues. So it's not quite the same thing, but you cannot do one without the other. And what we've heard today is that there are some really remarkable, scalable initiatives you can take. I think the 1.6 million in West Bengal kind of blew us away. But we know, and we've heard from you, that doesn't fix all the issues, that doesn't change the norms in the community. And there's a whole set of other things that we need to do to integrate with that sort of scalable action. And the ones that I've just written down as we've gone along are safer schools, women teachers, quality of teaching, learning teaching outcomes. But the one that's really kind of hit me between the eyes this afternoon is the importance of the community and engaging with the community and supporting the community to take their own steps I thought it was very powerful when we heard about trying to channel parents and communities to channel their desire to do the best for their children in the right direction rather than in the direction of the grandmother who thought that that's what she was doing. So those are the things that I've taken away from this afternoon, but please do grab the panellists with the questions that we haven't been able to take on your way out. Thank you very much.